Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Leeds, and we're back for some more Path of Exile 2, and, well, last time we were talking about, I don't know how significant of a change I would characterize it as, but a change that we were planning to make to our character to transition, well, maybe even transition is not quite the right word, specialize more than we had originally intended to. Well, even that's a strong statement. We didn't have that firm of a plan at the beginning, big picture. So we were always kind of waiting to lock in on what exactly we were trying to do. We knew we wanted to do a bunch of critical hit scaling, ideally reach 100% crit chance and at least 1000% crit damage, as we've done for basically all of our dedicated critical hit characters thus far, but as for how we were going to differentiate this character from the other ones that we've done before, other than just that this was using a new class and new ascendancy, we weren't really sure what the specifics were going to be. So we did last time talk about how the new intention, the new specialization that we have in mind is to be a dedicated trigger character, I guess you could say. A character that relies quite heavily on... I've now picked up a good copy of it. Cast on crit. So, basically, yes, we're going to have 100% crit chance on our attacks, but that is in part because we have a huge base crit chance on this weapon, although this weapon isn't great when it comes to pure damage. We probably will opt to use it long term, but not for the damage. It's for that base crit chance and for that triggered skills refund half of energy spent, which just makes it exponentially easier to sustain, potentially infinitely loop the spells that we trigger through cast on crit. So, in all likelihood, the stuff that gets activated through cast on crit, that's probably going to be our actual primary source of damage. So I've been, over the past week, in the process of trying to pick up the pieces necessary to make that specialization, that transition, if you will, be more effective. Because it was theoretical when we were discussing it last time, and I may have started to pick up a little bit of the items to make it happen, but still a fair number of additional items to pick up, primarily jewels, because we were looking to do pretty significant respec to the passive tree, one that primarily would give us additional jewel sockets, and obviously those jewel sockets are only any good if you have good jewels to put in the jewel sockets. So we had already picked up, I think, one particularly good jewel socket, or jewel, last time. I think it was this one, which is basically like mirror tier for us. I definitely did not pay that much for it, but huge crit chance plus crit damage. Triggered spells deal additional damage. Meta skills gain additional energy. That's what we were looking for across all those stats. Also the, where's it? Yeah, increased effective suffixes sneaking in there, making some of those big stats even more helpful. We were looking for one other jewel that had very similar stats to that. The crit, plus we needed a little more energy generated, and I don't think that I had picked this one up yet when we were last streaming stuffs. So this is a new addition. Again, yes, we got the crit chance, we got the meta skill energy gained we were looking for. The fourth stat is not quite as universally applicable as the triggered spell damage, but there's a pretty good chance we're going to be able to benefit from elemental damage, if from nothing else other than the Eventide Petals Midnight Zenith that we will be triggering regularly when we do our crits. So, speaking of which, we realized we do not want a corrupted version of this, or at least not one that is corrupted before we've had the chance to put an anointment on it. So, that is something we're also going to need to spend quite a bit of currency on, in addition to more of these jewels. And then from there, let's see, I think I picked up one more big skill gem upgrade. This one already in use. It's charge regulation, because we had a lower level version of this, but now it is all the way up at, is it level 20 or level 20? No, level 21. Yeah, with quality as well from these guys, giving us 11% quality to all of our skills. So this gives us a lot more crit chance when we have a power charge, which is nice. Although technically we just had we did already have it, just a weaker, lower level version of it. So the big things that remain are picking up more good jewels so we can make that transition to the new passive tree setup more meaningful. The high-level skills / skill gems so that we can have good stuff being activated when we are triggering cast on crit, which is why it is not yet even something that I have thrown on, because I'm not sure we have anything to make that good use of it yet. I'm thinking, I mean, of course, the intention of the build is that theoretically you could put almost anything in that spot and it can work, so it gives us flexibility there. So, we'll cross that bridge once we come to it. But other than that, let's see, tools, skill gems, oh, I mean, I was looking at comparing, throw some trade site stuff up here. So this is the set of jewel stuff. And now, at this point, since we have the energy generated for meta skills that we were looking for, we don't need to be as picky. Basically, just the higher stats we can get for crit chance and crit damage, the better. And obviously, if we can get additional stuff on top of that in the 3rd and 4th spots, then great. But as you can see, at least with those numbers as high as I would like them to be, it starts to get pretty pricey. So basically, over the past week, I've been eyeing this, more or less this exact search, trying to see if there are any bargains to be had. So, unfortunately, that is not a quick process, which is why I have only picked up, as I said, that one jewel over this past week. Then I was comparing that against Megalomaniac, which is perhaps what one might usually think would be among, if not the best possible high-end jewel options, if you can get the ideal combination of notables, in this case for us, obviously crit-based notables. The problem there is that we already have most of the really useful crit notables that we would like. We, once we get a non-corrupted version of our amulet, would like to anoint one of those on, and then that means one other, actually, maybe not even one other really significant crit notable that we would not be able to pick up from the tree. It's kind of just all half decent, but not, knock your socks off amazing type of notables. So, to be honest, I think a rare jewel is just almost objectively better. And especially if you consider, this is set up to give us at least 2 notables that are, as I said, in many cases, they're decent, they're good, but they're not amazing. So, the low-end ones are as you might imagine, on the lower end of that spectrum. And even on the lower end, we're already talking about in and around the same price as the rare jewels were. And then doesn't take long before suddenly we're talking an order of magnitude more expensive than the rare jewels. And even then, it's debatable as to whether those are better than the rares. They might not even be. Like, vulgar methods, or actually that's the one that I almost was going to say is the one clear one we'd like to get. Barbaric strength. That's the one that we would really like to pick up, but that one I think is going to be the anointment target in all likelihood. And once we've done that, yeah, it's like I said, other ones that are good but not amazing, and it's pretty comparable to what we might get from a really good rare jewel. In fact, if we get a really an especially good value on a rare jewel, it could just objectively be better. So it's difficult, and it's difficult to find the right one, or at least it requires a lot of patience. So try not to just rush into getting one for the sake of getting one when, yeah, it's pretty pricey. Obviously, there is the option for us to theoretically lower our standards, and maybe the cost goes down significantly. In that case, basically we're at a point where everything has to have this increased effect of suffixes, which is where both the crit stats fall under, for it to even be possible for it to meet the minimum numbers we're looking for. And that obviously is going to filter out most jewels. You're not going to just randomly stumble across one that drops with these types of stats on it already. So that limited supply is inherently going to mean that the price is going to be quite a bit higher. So, I haven't really experimented with it yet, but if we were to be much more lenient with how high these numbers go, then we might be able to save a bunch of currency and potentially be able to pick up enough jewels to fill out all the jewel sockets we'd like to have on this build, but I'd rather not make that compromise just yet. So, jewels, skill gems, the amulet in a form that is not corrupted and ideally still has a good crit chance roll. The int is actually kind of helpful just because it makes it easier for us to pick up the attribute requirements without going out of our way to target int, and obviously any int we pick up from our gear means we have a little more flexibility with our travel nodes on the tree, and to the extent that we can squeeze in strength for the sake of boosting our life a little bit higher, that obviously is a nice little bonus. So not that that's a deal breaker, but that, again, if we're being picky and we're willing to be patient, then that is potentially a nice little bonus to be had. So there's that stuff, and then there's, well, the rest of the gear. No, we do have a 1 or 2 grips of Kulamok that I think could be quite good for us. So that is pretty solid, but it does, and the gloves, we made a point of investing very heavily in those. But the helmet, chestplate, belt, and boots, or almost certainly. No, not even almost certainly. They will be replaced. It's just a matter of figuring out exactly how much remaining currency we have to invest in those spots. Yeah, right. And Format, have you exclusively been doing solo self-found? I remember you said you were doing it this league, but in the past you've always done it that way. Exclusively SSF for several leagues now. Yeah. It does change the dynamic quite a bit. I mean, obviously it is still possible to craft these things myself, but generally speaking, it's probably going to be less efficient from a currency standpoint. Yes, there's a chance that I could stumble across something that is still good, but just doesn't fit our build, in which case we could try selling that item, or likely jewel specifically, to someone else, and use that profit to then purchase a jewel that actually fits what we want to do, but there's some risks involved with that, because if you just brick all together, then obviously it doesn't really work. And that is also definitely something that is specific to Trade League. So that's been sort of the status for a little while now, and unfortunately, given how niche some of these things are that we're looking for, it does make it a little bit tricky to find a good item for us to fit those various needs. The more currency we get, obviously, the easier it becomes, because we can purchase the really good stuff, or we don't have to be as picky about finding something that is showing up at a discount. And so working on that as well. Do have some market trades with Big Ange that hopefully we'll be able to see through in the relatively near future that could help us pick up some more divs, but at least at the moment, basically, we're in a place where we can afford one of those nice, or just about one of those nice rare jewels Maybe if we get one at a discount, we could do that. Plus a nice version of this amulet, but again, if we're being picky, that is already a bit of a stretch. Can convert some of these things into divs, and that maybe gets us to the point where we can pick up 2 of the nice rare jewels, or comfortably nice rare jewel plus a good version of the amulet, but can't go much further than that without getting some currency flips to work here. Definitely, it is a very different dynamic. I mean, there are people who deliberately go to a trade league specifically with the intent of what's the right way to phrase this? There are some people who, perhaps more so than playing Path of Exile for purely gameplay reasons, are more interested in playing it to be a business person of sorts, playing the market, flipping currency, flipping items, turning a profit, and all that, and seeing how much they can accumulate that way. And that is cool sometimes, because it does mean that you may, if you are able to accumulate a fair bit of currency, you may be able to pick up some fun items that you would not otherwise have been able to get. Some rare ones that if you were in solo self-bound would be very hard to find just from, direct drops. So there is something to be said for doing that. So, and whenever you're trying to push for a pretty ambitious build, which I think this, at least relative to the other crit builds we've done in the past, this probably qualifies. It's, I think, at least of our various crit builds, it would be our highest cost one by, I think, a fair bit. Yeah, that's, you kind of, if you want to play that game, you do need to pick up some currency along the way, or get really lucky with either drops or crafting stuffs. So we're still in a little bit of a state of limbo on that. I've not actually changed our passive tree around yet, as I may have mentioned before, because we don't yet have those skill gem, or we only have some of those support gem. No, jewels. That's the word I'm looking for. We don't yet have all the jewels we're looking for, and only then will it really start to make good sense to do that. But hopefully we'll be close to that. And again, the more currency we end up picking up, the quicker and easier it is to accelerate that process. But as for today, given how we are still in a state of limbo, rather than just watching me click the refresh button on the trade site or stare at the trade window with Big Ange, no, instead I'm thinking there are actually a few little things that we have yet to do on the Atlas that it does feel like are probably long overdue at this point. Yes, there's the big breach stuff. I'm kind of deliberately waiting to do that until we have made our transition and become the actual character that we are intending to be, where we are, full-blown crit with our trigger skills and all that, especially for this one at tier 14. We might be able to get by with some of the weaker ones, but it just feels like let's save that for now. There's actually one item that we can cash in at the Withered Willow that I did not even realize when we checked this out for the first time last week that we did not use. So we might circle back there just to see what that's all about. We have not even visited, however you say that first word, Tarth. So we would need to go through at least one map before we get there, but a little intrigued to see what that is like. Then we did try out going to the Runes of King's March for the first time last week, and we started to dip our toe into the expedition world over here, although we not yet gotten close enough to see what this is all about, given how it has a quest marker on it. I mean, it does seem like it's one of those sort of unique-ish maps, the likes of which did exist before this most recent update, but seems like there's some narrative reason why you're supposed to go here this time around, so we don't yet know what that is all about. Actually haven't gone to the corrupted area yet, so I think as I mentioned last week, I accidentally did a map that apparently was corrupted from someone else's lobby/atlas, and it actually did give me a point for this, which I did not think was possible. It's kind of a happy accident, I suppose, but I believe that is what we would get from going through and checking out some of this stuff. So we could potentially do some of that. We could also potentially see what this version, the Atlas version of the Vol Ruins, is all about. We're a little bit further away from that, but that is also theoretically possible. And then, of course, we could go further along the lines for some of the things that we have at least started to do a little bit of, like going through the next area in the fortressy spot, or progressing further in the Abyss world. But I think I'm less interested in going those routes tonight, just because there are some things that, as I said, we just really haven't even looked at all. So I'd like to prioritize those, and also it is a work night and got a pretty late start, so we're not going to have that much time, full disclosure, to do stuff today. So I'm thinking we just keep things relatively simple, and hopefully still have a chance to see some things we have not yet gotten the chance to see. So let's go here first. I imagine this might be the quickest of those various things that we were just discussing, because the whole idea is that I picked up this Raven's Reflection a little over a week ago. We did have it last week. It dropped from having done a simulacrum again on someone else's Atlas, and I didn't even realize it was possible to get a quest drop like this from a simulacrum that is being hosted by someone else, but yet we somehow did. Also, apparently saw that this is possible to purchase through And, which I really did not think would be possible, again, because quest items usually, they drop, and that's the only way you can get them. They are typically untradeable. So I wasn't sure what to make of that. But anyways, maybe that's all on the side. Let's see what this is gonna do here. I've only spent a very limited amount of time here. I don't even really notice this before. That might be... We saw this. This is where you do the whole instilling stuff. And I think that's when we realized, oh, wait, we done goofed. So we can't do anything to this amulet. But maybe this affects this.
Speak.
How do we use this? Reach the mirror in the withered.
Spirit guide you.
This looks like the mirror. I wonder if it doesn't let us do it because, as I was just saying, we didn't pick it up from our own simulacrum, so the game was kind of like, does not compute. Feels like I should be allowed to click on this and use this unless I... Oh, no, never mind. I can just drag it like that. Okay. I was hesitant to do that because usually if you drop something on the ground, you risk it getting permanently deleted, and I did not wish to do that. But, okay, what's going to happen now? I don't know, but let's see. Oh. I don't know if I want to do this right now, but... Let's see, is this an area with, like, monsters? Or I thought this was going to be... Oh, dear. I thought this was just going to... I thought we were going to hand it to the dude in town, and he was going to go crazy and reveal more stuff to us, but... Perhaps not? Oh. Perhaps this is how we see that instead. Oh, are we about to fight this thing? Okay. I don't know that I want to be. But this is actually pretty freaking cool for a number of reasons. But one of which is that, at least in PoE 1, for a long time in Delirium land, there were all these sort of ways in which obviously Delirium would sort of taunt you as you were doing the Delirium encounters, and you even going through the simulacrum, yeah, it spawned a whole bunch of powerful enemies in it, but you never really fought him specifically. But here we are, and it seems like this is our first time kind of sort of seeing him in the flesh. I don't think we're about to fight him, but I certainly could be. Well, not here, at least not until we go through this, but that might be a boss fight we're about to enter there. I don't know. If it's so, then I don't really want to do that right now. We are, as I was just saying, we are not equipped for that type of encounter. But, you know, this just doesn't look ominous at all. Surely this will just be all sunshine and rainbows when we walk through.
Stay calm. This is all mine.
Yep. Nope, we out of here. Nope, not a good time to do that. Okay. Turns out that is a boss fight. I think on a future occasion, we could certainly check that out, but this is not that time. Looks very cool. I am very intrigued, don't get me wrong, but I don't know that this is the right time to be doing that. But now my next question becomes, okay, so we no longer have that item. If we go to Withered Willow, can we re-enter that area whenever we want? Oh. Now see, this does make me a little nervous. Much safer for you to learn things this way. Well, I'll tell you what we're about to learn is, well, the health bar is still here, but we are seemingly not in the boss arena. What does this mean? He is still trash talking us. I am half expecting to just have like a random fist slam down and one-shot us or something like that, even when we seemingly are not in the boss arena anymore. I just wouldn't really rule that out. But it does seem as though we can re-enter that spot whenever we'd like. At least right now, because the instance hasn't reset. You know, if we come back a week from today, is that still going to be the case? I don't know. Maybe we have functionally just thrown away our key. I couldn't really tell you. But what I can tell you is that it now makes sense that basically you do the simulacrum, which, as I said, at least at one point in time in PoE 1, and now, you know, I haven't played PoE 1 for several years at this point, so maybe my perspective is outdated, but at least once upon a time in PoE 1, you did the simulacrum, and the simulacrum was the final encounter of Delirium. You had the basic Delirium stuff that could spawn in maps, which was the standard Delirium experience, but then the simulacrum itself, that was as far as you could go. Now, basically, obviously, much like in PoE 2 and PoE 1, there were different waves, and so there was a difference between, okay, you could go in at the very beginning, fight one wave of enemies, and then call it quits, and then that's not really that much of an end game experience yet. But if you were truly trying to push all the way to the end of the simulacrum encounter, then at that point, yes, it becomes functionally an end game encounter of sorts. But it still just felt a little bit strange, or at least I certainly remember hearing some people saying that they felt it was strange. It's been a while since I experienced it myself, of course. But that it was Delirium, the league mechanic, or at least it was originally a league in PoE 1, obviously got instilled permanently afterward and found its way into PoE 2 as well. But it just never you never saw Delirium himself. There were little, he would sort of show up as a ghost to taunt you, but you never fought him directly, which I think many people sort of took issue with. It felt like it was, unfulfilling in that way. It felt like there was still unresolved tension even after going all the way to the end of the simulacrum. And similar in PoE 2, except that now that is no longer the case, because if you go through the simulacrum in its entirety, that's basically the prequel that gives you the key to actually then go on and fight Delirium directly himself. So I think that's pretty cool. Obviously, we are not yet ready to experience that in its entirety ourselves, but, maybe we were jumping the gun a little bit anyways, because, as I said, it's not even like we were doing that simulacrum on our own Atlas anyway. So, anyways, we'll hopefully have the chance to, explore those sorts of things in the future. But I think our character needs to get a little bit stronger first. But we've at least answered some of our questions about how that stuff works. So, as for other things, the other ways in which we would like to tempt fate, let's see. That does also speak to the nature of the reworked endgame in PoE 2. Not just that they added more content, but that they made it more structured and have more natural progression to it. Where, it's not just Delirium that happens in a vacuum, it's Delirium in maps leads to Simulacrum, which leads to Pinnacle boss fight. And they've done that, or something along those lines, for many of the things that used to previously just be League mechanics, or, the PoE 2 equivalent of what was originally a PoE 1 League mechanic. So, Breach probably falls under a similar category. We obviously haven't made it all the way through the Abyss process yet, but it could be somewhat similar there as well. And then there is Ritual, which we could learn more about here. Need to have more faith in myself. Should have seen how many times you had to die to Kulamok because you didn't want to wait to get another chance to fight him. Yes. I mean, there are definitely some encounters where you have a finite number of chances to defeat the boss, and if you don't make that happen, then your key is gone, and you need to farm it back up. So I honestly do not know if that is the case for the key that we just used. If so, then perhaps that explains why it is tradable, and therefore, if we did in fact just burn one, then we may be able to go, well, we may have to go purchase one to give it another shot, or, do another simulacrum to, I have no idea if it's, what the drop rate is. If it's a, guaranteed drop. I mean, I'm pretty sure that I actually did finish more than one simulacrum, so maybe it only gives you at most one at a time, and it would only spawn again if you did what we just did and used it. I guess used it and succeeded, or in our case, used it and then immediately ran away. Strategically repositioned, as Sir Robin might say. But I think let's make our way in this direction and just see what that spot is all about. Because for some of the town areas that are affiliated with a League mechanic, there may have been equivalents to that. And again, I'm just going to keep it really simple here because I just want to zoom through, given our lack of time and whatnot. But I'll just pick one. There were some League mechanics where it was a little clearer what the town-like area was going to be all about. The Runes of King's March looks kind of similar to normal King's March, right? So, but that being said, I have no idea what this is supposed to mimic, if anything at all. It might just be completely different from anything we've ever seen. I don't know. What I will say is that of the various League mechanics, Ritual is probably not one of my favorite ones. When it doesn't crash my game, Breach probably takes that crown. Oh, Rogue Exile. Don't know if that hit you. Don't think it did. I think that did. Oh, this says there's Abyss in here as well. Okay. Just got the Rogue Exile. This, I think, is the first of these Abyss area... Not Abyss area. These, Ritual area zones that we've done. The ones that are in and around the town that theoretically give us a point for Ritual on the Ritual tree. I think it kind of just automatically gives you one in this area to give you a little bit of a map, at least for pathing purposes. Gives you one of those, but it's a little bit misleading. Might make it seem as though we have gone through this area a little bit already, but that I do not believe to be the case. So, I don't know what exactly it entails. I mean, obviously, I imagine there are going to be rituals in this map, as you can see. But, for example, do we need to... Okay, yeah, it does say in the right corner there. We have to defeat the bosses and also complete the rituals. This map does have a double boss encounter. Nobody makes me bleed my own blood. It's just me, or are these things faster than usual? Also, who's left? Oh, can we delayed that at one point? I don't know that that's necessary. I think that was a long time ago, and I have since picked up some of those. So I think we kind of want to zoom a bit. In part because, as I said, this is not exactly a high-tier map that's going to give us much in the way of rewards of any variety, but also because I don't know where the rituals are going to be, so I kind of like to get to the boss and then track down those rituals and call it a day. Oh, here's the Abyss, which doing the calculus in my head of what is the probability of this actually being helpful on this low tier of a map. The answer is very low. But hey game, if you want to prove me wrong, you're welcome to do that. That was scary for a second. I did a killing palm in which seemingly nothing happened. I just teleported directly on top of the enemies and said, "Here I am. How nice to meet you. Don't mind me as I don't actually attack you. I just wish to say hello." These abysses can be kind of nasty, actually, with the way in which they block some skills, depending on which side of the little hole in the ground you're on. Let's see. We have invested a fair bit of abyss points in the tree, so we do have some stuff that makes it so that the abysses are more likely to be larger, which may be a dynamic that we are seeing here. Coffer, which is the currency one. Ah, sure. Absolutely nothing besides a tiny bit of gold. Oh, it's actually a little more here. It's also a coffer. It's okay. Nothing to write home about. I don't think that's going to be anything to write home about either, though. Here is... Ooh. That is how not to use that attack. Falling Thunder. Have it fully charged up with all your power charges, and then immediately send all the projectiles into a tree. In case anyone was looking for tips. I do not like this type of... type of ritual with the chaos projectiles that chase after you like this. Especially not when we have a pretty slow attack in Falling Thunder. Alright, I forgot these recently been changed to actually direct you toward the next encounter. It's actually kind of useful on this occasion. Theoretically, it was pointing us over here. Three rituals. Okay, so this is the last one. One is comparatively quite cramped. Sometimes, if I'm being smart and planning ahead, I do deliberately try to save the largest, most open areas for the final ritual, so that it's not quite as jam-packed as this for the one where there are the most enemies. But alas, no such planning was to be had for this one. Please go down. Why do I feel like all the enemies are reviving? I feel like I just keep coming back here. Maybe it's because I've been hitting our Falling Thunder into so many trees that it's just very rarely is it actually doing anything. There we go. Okay. Hell yeah, we have a few uniques here. For the most part, they are not ones that are especially interesting to us. We could get this. As I said, it's not actually of great interest to us right now, but we can offer tribute to the king, and I'm thinking we might as well. Now for the bowels. Here I am thinking they're going to be in one of the far corners, but now these guys, usually they're on like a little island that is maybe not quite at the end of the map, I guess, as we're seeing here. Minutes of this encounter? I think they had a little green glue. This right here? I think so. No? It is a bridge. It is the wrong bridge. Here? You seen the edge here? I swear, if it's that little spot that I didn't check, I'm not going to be pleased. Do kind of feel the need to double check this now. No, okay. Well, now we know. He's not. Right now we're getting pretty close to the beginning of the map. Make me skeptical. Oh no, maybe it just goes far enough in this direction. No, we're doubling back. Make no mistake. Alright, well, we have successfully found almost everything except for the boss. Love it when that happens. Where'd we miss? It's right here, isn't it? The island in the middle. Almost got heavy stunned there, not gonna lie, yeah, this is it. It's two of the butcher dudes. There we go. Oh, I remember this. Friends. Pick up our map that doesn't make it through our loot filter. I mean, you have to do it, Brett. Okay, so theoretically, that does give us access to this area here. I don't think we're going to be walking straight into a boss fight like we did previously, because I think that was in large part since we had picked up an item that was actually, you know, a little bit rare. It was actually pretty good stats, not gonna lie. Wish they were a little bit higher, but that's kind of catching my attention. I know nowadays it's easier to get good jewelry with the tree and whatnot, but still. But yeah, I think the other one, we weren't technically walking straight into one of those boss fights. We had already done the basic introduction to the area, and it was only because we had that special item that we were able to access that fight. So there might be a pinnacle boss somehow accessible through this area. I think that is the case, but I don't think we have the means to trigger it right away, nor would we like to, in all likelihood. So it was once the heart of druidic power and culture. What is the deal here?
Step through the Tashka. Do not be afraid.
First entrance to the Wildwood. Oh, we saw this person. She was a ghost lady of sorts. What, did she make her first appearance in Act 1? Right as we were getting introduced to the ritual mechanic? I think that may be the case, but I vaguely recall that we were distracted at the time, / were having other conversations and weren't really able to give her our full attention. So, or maybe my sound was messed up or something like that. There was some reason why I remember I wasn't able to listen as closely to that conversation as I might have otherwise liked to have done. But who knows? Maybe we're gonna find her and she's gonna immediately, transform into a super boss, bop us on the head once, and we'll be dead. Okay. Oh. So we do have the stashes, and I'm guessing these are all flavor text of some variety. Maybe we'll listen to those in a second, but let's talk to you first.
You appear livelier than you did before. Is it something to do with this place?
Aye, my soul is strongest here. I feel the warmth of the goddess watching over me.
Hey, you don't look like a
I
ghost
see.
as much.
And what is this place, Eve?
Hush! Do not speak my name here. If you must address me, you may call me the Speaker of Truths.
Okay, that's a little weird.
I ask why?
Names have great power here, and the nameless are desperate to overtake this domain. Should they learn our names, well, it's not worth the risk.
We do not need names. That is fine. Now, tell me everything.
I have called upon you for two reasons. One concerns us all. The other is purely selfish. The Wildwood was once full of life, but now it is sickened, and I can feel it slowly dying. Before us, the three aspects of the goddess stand, watching over a long-healed wound upon this land. But as the king in the mists and the nameless grow stronger, that barrier weakens, and the darkness below spills forth once more. Should it break free, it would bring with it eternal doom.
We must contain it. Tell me what can be done.
You must find the king in the mists in his realm. Drive him and the nameless back to the dark nothing from whence they came. Fool
That's
him,
almost Lord of the Rings line.
engage his rituals and pay tribute to him. In doing so, he will believe you honor his claim of existence. He will grant you an audience.
An audience
And
with the
after
king,
I
you say.
deceive him,
That pertains to my other request. The king in the mists holds my body in thrall, and so my soul burns and I cannot rest. Return my body so I may know peace, and when you kill him, do so slowly and painfully if you can.
Oh. Well, that's lovely. Well, so this is... The thing about ritual is, unlike... What's a good example of the alternate? Unlike Delirium, that we were talking about previously, where that one did not until very recently have an endgame pinnacle boss of sorts. Ritual kinda did with the King of the Mists, except I think maybe not that I was fighting him on the regular myself, but I think I had heard through some other people that it felt a little strange because mechanically he's very similar to the dude who you fight in, what is it, Freythorn of Act 1. Has a little bit of additional mechanics in it for stuff in and around the boss fight when you aren't directly fighting him, but the fight itself is very similar. So it seemed a little strange to have a pinnacle boss be a bit of a recycled enemy. So what I wonder is if he remains the pinnacle ritual boss, or I know that they made new pinnacle encounters for several different mechanics. Obviously, Delirium was one of them. I feel like Ritual was one of the other ones as well. In which case, the king is not the final ritual enemy, I don't think. It's a little weird that the king is not really the king, metaphorically. But obviously have not yet experienced that firsthand, so can't really speak to how that all fits together narratively, but could be kind of interesting if it actually is sort of similar to the approach that they took with Delirium, where again it's not just a two-tiered system where there's basic encounters in maps and then the final boss encounter or pinnacle experience of some non-boss variety in the case of what used to be the last thing you could do on the Delirium front with the Simulacrum. But is basically what I'm getting at is obviously you can do basic Delirium in maps. You can, much like you can do basic Ritual in maps. So those two are quite comparable. But is the King of Mists now the sort of mid-tier encounter, much like the Simulacrum is for Delirium? So like Delirium is to Simulacrum as Ritual is to King of the Mists, and then in that case, does that mean Delirium is to whatever the Raven boss fight, or whatever the technical name of it was that we accidentally stumbled into? Is it Delirium is to that as Ritual is to some other truly pinnacle fight that we have yet to learn about? Maybe more about these nameless enemies?
There is something otherworldly about this Kaer Tarth.
As you walked through the Tashka of Kaer Tarth, you left Rayclass behind. Here, you stand in the Wildwood. The Wildwood was once a safe haven from the long winter. Now, its own safety hangs in the balance.
I see. So to pass from Rayclass to Wildwood is as simple as crossing that threshold.
Yes. The Tashka of Kaer Tarth is the original gateway to the Wildwood, the realm of the Driocht. This is where the goddess invited the first Asmeri inside, those who would become the Magi. But during our great war against the Nameless, this dark wound festered here, under the guarding eyes of the goddess. Now, it is the last bastion against the burgeoning darkness.
You called it the original gateway. Does that mean there are others?
There are countless other gateways among the forests, if you know where to look.
Okay. Yeah, it does seem as though she's obviously... She's telling us some of the details, but she's not telling us all of the details, which does immediately make me suspicious that she may not be as much of an ally as she's trying to make us think that she is. Part of me is wondering if the whole like, oh, the King of the Mists is capturing my body and you need to defeat him to free my soul thing is all just an excuse to basically release her so that she can become the actual pinnacle boss. Maybe it's her, or I imagine it's like a huge monster of some variety, but this is Path of Exile we're talking about here. It would not be that crazy for someone who appears to be a human to either instantly evolve / mutate into a gigantic monster, or if their spirit then, gets animated in some way that allows them to take the form of, or, occupy the body of some crazy big monster. So I'm not ruling that out. Maybe she truly is innocent, but I'm just saying, I'm a little suspicious here. Either that or she is the goddess. In which case, she's actually a lot more powerful than she is leading us to believe, but she is truly an ally. Or maybe the goddess is actually, despite the name, not as peaceful, not as benevolent as we might think.
The Sisters Three were originally one goddess. They are aspects of a shared soul.
The dreamer has no need for such unnecessary complexity.
Allow me to explain. In creating the Wildwood, the goddess gave all of herself. Her body became the forest. Nature itself, the Macha. Her hope became the balance between good and evil. The unending battlefield, the Katha. Her will became the guide, the call to arms, the Morrigan. The Driocht itself as we know it.
The Driocht?
It may appear to you as wisps. A chosen few hear its voice.
You've spoken of the dangers their names pose, but you just named the Sisters Three, did you not?
True.
I have spoken no names, only their titles. Did you think a loving mother named her children the Katha, the Macha, and the Morrigan?
I mean, I wasn't judging.
A fair point. But I still fail to understand why names hold such power here.
Names carry a person's everything. Titles are just a description. But know that the goddess never intended any of this. She gave of herself entirely, every shred of her power, so that we, her chosen children, would never be left wanting. In the end, it was her selflessness that was the problem, I suppose.
And maybe I'm just being a little bit cynical / critical here, but she gave everything so that we could have peace and happiness and not a trouble in the world. And I mean, have you seen this place? Have you looked around? Have you looked at the state of Rayclast? I mean, I'm not saying that she failed miserably in that attempt, but I'm kind of saying that she failed miserably in that attempt. So everything's fine, right? Clearly, this was an unmitigated success. No, I'm a little skeptical of just how effective her strategy was.
The king in the mists is no king at all. He is a usurper ripped from the realm of nothingness, a loathsome fiend brought into existence by a careless naming.
Was he a king in the nothingness? Or was he something else?
It is not for us to know. The nothingness is a realm made of those things that might be, but are not.
I see. And a naming caused his existence. How?
In the Wildwood, we are closer to the nothingness. This place is a bridge between realms. Those things that cease not being, well, here, they become. The tale is told. A name was carelessly spoken, and a howl of anger and agony echoed through the entire Wildwood. That howl was the king in the mists erupting into being. It tore a hole wide as the sea and thin as a needle. Since that moment, he has waged an endless campaign to bring more nameless like himself into existence. His cultists carry his message and build his altars. Their belief empowers him.
To what end?
I was foolishly part of his cult for a time.
Oh.
The king's words fell on our ears with the promise of hope to end the war for the Wildwood, twisting a dream into a nightmare. Now I know. He meant the end of the Magi.
Okay, now not gonna lie. On one hand, I was about to say that feels like an interesting way to give more depth to the King of the Mists, the cultists, all that stuff. On the other hand, it does also just feel like, okay, what's to prevent a cultist from just moseying on in here, saying a name or two, and then immediately and instantly they achieve their goal. It just seems like that's a very easy thing for them to, unless it's incredibly difficult to walk into this place that we just walked into, but I don't know. No one is getting possessed, mutated, or another evil being in disguise waiting for someone to stumble upon them. That never happens, right? Never mind the fact that what, in Act 1 alone, it probably happens 1, 2, 3. I don't countless times, just in Act 1 alone.
My lamenting has gone on far too long. I wish to be at peace.
For what reason does the king hold your body captive?
A ritual or a message. Either way, I am being defiled for dark ends.
Would recovering your body bring you peace?
I certainly hope so. Or perhaps my soul longs for the return of one who may never come.
Not sure what that last part is all about, but I was thinking for a second that it would maybe make sense if she was the one who said the name, maybe even her own name, that brought the King of the Mists into this world, and that would explain why he's targeted her specifically, may not be a coincidence. Whether, by her speaking that name, that sort of automatically meant that she was going to be the one who was instantly affected, or if he, in some form of retaliation, singled her out voluntarily afterward. Which, in either situation, would maybe make it less likely that she's the goddess, although maybe that whole question of, hey, what happens when you get freed? Maybe the answer is, oh yeah, no, I do in fact mutate into this horrifying monster who is the actual pinnacle boss. I don't know. What would that mean for what she would do in this town after that fight? I'm sure there would be something, or maybe we don't even need her after that happens. I don't really know what role she plays beyond just, exposition at this point.
Their very existence afflicts the Wildwood with darkness and rot. The Magi and Nameless have been at war since as long as anyone can remember. Me and mine joined the king, but we knew not his true intent. We fell into his lies, thinking he promised peace. The Nameless are naught but deceivers and monsters. They do not deserve the existence they so desire.
Could you not leave them be? Live and let live.
Our ancestors tried that. There can be no peace with such beasts. Generations of Magi have died fighting the Nameless. They must be stopped.
Okay. It seems to imply there that the King of the Mists was already in existence in more or less his current form at the time of her joining those groups of cultists, which would, if that is accurate, that would suggest that she was not the one that summoned him into being, unless we're being, a little loose with the sequence of events, which maybe they aren't that picky with it narratively, but we'll see in time, of course.
I wait for you.
Okay, well, that seems to be all the lore from her. I suppose we can get some more lore from these here, which are the three sisters or something like that. And I do recall Morgan is legitimately is she a goddess in Celtic mythology or something? These all three maybe. I think it's Celtic, but that may also not be true. This name exists in some form of mythology. I just don't remember exactly which form it is, but I think it's from roughly that geography. And I mostly know this just because, I guess, minor spoilers for Hades 2 here? But there is a reference to this goddess in Hades 2, which intrigued me, so I looked it up, but this was several months ago, so I don't remember the details. That's the backstory.
I am the Morrigan, the call to battle, the crow guiding all who follow to victory. I am the bravery in the heart of every Magi.
Oh, okay. That's quite simple. Quite short.
I am the Maka, the kindness, the earth itself. I am the gift that surrounds and protects every Magi.
I am the Katha, the duality. The truth will be illuminated before me. I am the discerning eye of every Magi.
Okay. Oh. Oh. I didn't notice that before, but that's an interesting observation. Huh. That does make you wonder, doesn't it? There are potentially a few different explanations I can think of for that, but it does does make me speculate. Huh. So I was about to say, the strange thing about this place is that at least at the moment, it does not
Hello.
serve any clear purpose. No surprises incoming is what I'm saying. I mean, with the closest comparison to this location, I guess you could make a few. Yes, obviously there's the Breach Town, which has an NPC who you can actually sell things to, which, okay, is something. It's not like that's a huge draw that would give you any reason to go there beyond going to any other shopkeeper. The big thing is, of course, the tree for the Breach Town, where you can cash in some of your League mechanic, or I'm calling it a League mechanic, but, you know, the Breach-specific mechanic stuffs you can cash in there. So that is unique to that mechanic and unique to that area where you can cash that in. So it serves a very specific purpose that is tailored specifically to that type of content. So that makes sense. There's additional lore around that and what have you, which, for those who are interested in it, it gives more context. It makes it feel more integrated with the rest of the game, but it's not like it's exclusively that. Then you have the place where we just were for the delirium stuff, where you can anoint items, anoint amulets. So, similar to the tree, there's a specific mechanical use for that area that is specific to the content that it is tied to. So there's reason to go there that you would not otherwise be able to do that thing. And then we obviously learned very recently that there is also a boss fight that you access in that area as well. But at the moment, we don't have any of those things here. All we have is exposition. There's no way in which to cash in resources from the ritual mechanic. There's no portal to a boss fight, at least. We don't have either of those things yet. But it does make me wonder how those things might eventually become present here. Because otherwise, if it remains this way, then yeah, this place is kind of just a dud. There's not really any reason to come here, and I doubt that would be the case going forward. Again, I do think that there is a new endgame pinnacle boss of some variety from Ritual, and so in all likelihood, you may need to come here in order to access that, rather than just doing it through the map device directly and just having it create a portal from your hideout or the Ziggurat refuge. But I don't know if there would be anything akin to the tree or the distillation area here. I don't really think I have much in the way of ritual stuffs here. There's the fragments. I have the simulacrum stuff, I have the breach stuff, but forgetting what the name was for the splinters you got for ritual that eventually led you to fight the King of the Mists. Maybe I just, as I said, I have not been going out of my way to target ritual stuff, so I've not been farming up any of that stuff. Whereas you can see, I have picked up a lot more for simulacrum, delirium stuff, and for breach. But maybe that, I assume that stuff still exists, and then if you get all that, then you could cash it in there and access that area. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure, but it is strange that at least at the beginning, this place does seem more or less completely pointless. So, weird. But that does mean that we've now checked off a couple of things that we wanted to investigate further. Other than that, we could poke our head in here. I think I know what happens when we try out some of these corrupted spots, but we can at least get some confirmation, and maybe we at least approach this enough that we can see what that says. Because, yeah, I'm pretty sure I know what the basic idea is going to be there. It's going to be that it's a special location, a map that's a little more unique. Kind of along the lines of this, which is actually another place that we would like to go to check out Jado's spycraft. But there's only so much we can do right now. So let's just see what the deal is in one of these spots. So we can do this one, or we can do that one. I think all the other ones we're not quite able to make it. That's actually a breach spot. Huh. I guess do the chilled ground. I've kind of been avoiding it just because it kind of by definition means it's slower, but well. So yeah, the corrupted stuff, it makes the zone one level higher. That is how it used to be. And I imagine it also means that additional enemies can spawn in if you take down enemies close by. Okay, so I think mechanically that still sounds the same. I think it's mostly the rewards that are different now for completing maps like this. Again, I really don't hate it much here. It's a low-level map that I just threw in for the sake of making this quick. And I think especially in this case where I don't know that we need to complete any stuff other than the boss. Might as well just beeline it. And try not to step on the chilled ground any more than we have to. Usually this, loops around in a bit of a U shape, if I remember correctly. Never mind. I take it back. That guy teleported next to me, and therefore I must defeat him. I took that personally. It's okay, he is no more. That's lots of rares in this map. Would have been nice if we had actually made a point of making it a decent map. There you see some of the corrupted enemies spawning in. Oh, I actually wonder, I think I saw that, there's some special mods that we got from this being a corrupted area. Maybe it even said something like there's a higher chance of rare enemies. Maybe it is purely just a coincidence. I don't know. Oh, that was a bad place to walk. Here we go. Okay, actually, funnily enough, this is the same boss that I think we were fighting most recently, just in this case, it's only one of the butchers, rather than two. I don't actually know if that means that this guy has more life. It might. You would think it ought to, right? Is it almost like they just split this one boss's life across two versions of him for the previous map we were just doing? Well, we get our much coveted map there. The two maps! What do we owe the pleasure? Okay, so the map is completed. Thought it was going to give us a point here, but I don't know if we have to do anything else. Thought that was all we had to do, was just take down the boss, but I could be mistaken. I'd rather not have to track down all the rares. Maybe we got most of them, but maybe we have to go back to town and talk to Doriani for us to actually get credit for that. That was the last rare. One more of the things we completed. Shrine, there's the... Okay, it's like, I'd rather not have to do this just to pick up stuff that we probably don't need. Oh, that's another rare. What the heck? Oh no, it wasn't a rare. It just happened to have an extra mod. It's a friend of the rare. A minion, I believe they say. Alright, I think we at least see what Doriani has to say.
Yes.
Nothing. Hold on, then. What does... What does this say? Oh! It says corrupted, yes, but it doesn't have any icon below it saying that you get a passive, like an Atlas passive point of any variety. Unlike many of the other ones. Like this here has that little special star/cross symbol with the 1 next to it to tell you that you get a breach point in that circumstance, but I did not realize that it does not have any such label for these. Now, obviously, that may just be that it's only the big one, the coalesced corruption, that gives you any rewards, but that'd be a little bit of a different approach relative to these other ones, where you get, you know, a relatively small but incremental amount every time you do even one of the smaller maps for that given mechanic. So it'd be strange if the little ones didn't really do anything, but the big one did here, but that may be the case. In which case, I did not pick the most efficient way to get to that. And it used to be, of course, this was the main way that you progressed, air quotes, through the Atlas, where you would just have to do a whole bunch of these, and each time you went up to a higher tier map to progress, either originally 1 tier at a time, then afterward, what was in increments of 3. But given how we are talking about seemingly just a single coalesced corruption area, how does that work? Does that mean you do this, you get the 1 extra point from doing so, but unlike seemingly all the other places where completing the initial area gives you everything maxed out, this is the exception, one of the few exceptions where you only get started on that process, but you actually do need to keep on scouring the Atlas to find those encounters later on before you can max everything else out. I guess it actually might be kind of similar for Hilda, who is the closest comparison we have, because it's a little bit of a different situation. It's not the same as Breach, Delirium, Ritual, all that stuff, which are sort of League mechanics, whereas, I mean, technically this is, I would argue, an offshoot of Beyond from PoE 1, which was also a League mechanic, so technically the source is kind of, the type of source is kind of the same, except the way that it has been implemented in PoE 2 from the onset was always a little bit different relative to Breach and Abyss and all that stuff. So just a little strange given that context. But if you ignore that and just put the corrupted maps in the same bucket as the Hilda beast hunting stuff, and I believe there will be one more such master with similar skill trees from Jado once we do this. Spoiler alert, I'm sorry. I mean, at this point, I think it's probably something that many people have already seen a long time ago and perhaps maxed out and had plenty of time to experiment with. I know I'm probably quite behind in that regard, in large part because I have not been doing much from my Atlas, but maybe it's just that those three all inherently take longer and are longer to max out and are more spread out beyond just the initial encounter or area around that initial encounter spot. So, okay. Food for thought going forward. Now, when I started doing this, I did not necessarily expect that I was getting myself into a series of maps. And sure, if we just threw in a whole bunch of level 1 maps and just coasted straight to the boss and didn't worry about anything else, then maybe we could get this done tonight as well. But I mean, this doesn't seem to suggest that we need a particular tier map, whereas even the ones that have been inaccessible because they're not adjacent, those have given us a forewarning, as we see here with the Hive Colony, that it needs to be tier 14. So maybe we could just zoom through that way. Feel like, well, first I was going to say, I feel like that would be kind of
Speak.
detracting from the experience in a way. Maybe we aren't getting as much out of the encounters, although I feel like, if anything, this is probably something I'd be less concerned about that for relative to the likes of Breach, where you aren't as ambitious, you're not getting as much Hive Blood, you're not getting the womb gifts to be as high a level, so your rewards are noticeably less. Now, obviously, any map that's a lower tier is going to, or, you know, not as aggressively rolled, is not going to give you as much stuff, but if we're just doing this for the sake of unlocking things, then I don't know that this has as much of a downside to just coasting through. What would be the most efficient way? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it's 3 regardless. 1, 2, 3. So take your pick. Guess we'll just continue on the path that we have been going. Clearing Corrupted Tower is the first thing you did on reaching maps, just out of habit, right? Oh. Well, there's Delirium. Now, this is another thing that I'm deliberately going to skip. And I know that might be between that and deliberately making these lower tier maps. People might be like, let's just do the stuff. There's quite literally no reward for Delirium, seemingly. Also, that actually did a lot of damage to us. No thanks. So I know we are not hanging around to do much here. Oh, that's actually, I don't realize this. Full blown. A little bit better. It's full blown expedition rather than just a single pile there. Oh, these are also the corrupt enemies they're spawning in. So that's actually kind of meaningful. The game was like, oh, Lids, really? You're trying to say that these maps don't matter? Well, one moment will I tempt you with better currency drops to make you second-guess that statement. No, make no mistake. We would be getting a lot more of those. And in higher tiers, if we were to do a higher tier map on it and whatnot. This one does have a little bit more going for it, and I don't think this is tied to I think this is just the normal Berisium Remnant rather than the full-blown expedition when we're this far removed from it. Unique jewelry does intrigue me, but there's so much bad jewelry that the chances of you actually getting something good are pretty low. So, yeah, I think, again, just not really anything that we must do. I do apologize, but given that it is quite late on work night, I'm trying to balance between getting enough done to make it feel like we can say we did something today, while at the same time, not going to bed at, 2 a.m. Okay, this is the boss fight. Is the Chaos Tree dude. Excuse me, sir. You are supposed to go down now. Thank you. Oh, look at that. Whole bunch of maps. Okay. That's another one of these guys. 1 and 2. Okay.
What is it? Quickly. Of course.
These guys in. Oh, goodness, look at this. We're getting tier 2 maps. Yeah, sure. One of these guys. Take your pick. Oh no, less effective curses on monsters. Whatever are we to do with our precisely 0 curses? Okay, so what were we just saying? This one, Ornate Chambers, this is the snake dude. Also, actually, a fairly straightforward one to just go straight to the boss if we'd like, because kind of just ignore all the side areas if we would so choose. If I don't just get stuck on that pillar right there. Would not recommend. I like how that made a dramatic visual effect, as if there was going to be something important that dropped there. It was a unique, theoretically, but apparently that unique did not make it through our filter. That's why it looked like a whole lot of nothing. I'm curious to check what it was. That is the answer. I think I still have very aggressive root filter on from doing maps that were more ambitious than this, which is why we're seeing very little at the moment. In addition, they're also just not doing a lot of it, as previously mentioned. Though, unambitious stuffs that we have set for this map. I could potentially be convinced to do this. I will do this as it's just very quick. Let's get to the boss. Oh, this actually... Oh, this is curving in a way that I did not really expect it to. Fuzzling me. If this is the boss... means I probably shouldn't have just used all my power charges, but there we go. Please don't shoot me. Don't shoot me, bro. Did I just whiff? Oh no, I did. Okay. Did hit him. Didn't look like I hit him for a second there. His life bar did not move very much. There we are. It looked like this thing moved for a second, which threw me off. I did not know what to make of that. Did I just make that up? Or is that always a thing, and for some reason only just now I noticed that? Maybe that's on me. Yeah, it's so daring today.
Yes.
That's the first word I would use to describe our approach today. We might just use that. And theoretically, believe we can just go into this one. It's Confluence, which is... Oh, this is the monkey, isn't it? Less corruption has increased merging radius. Okay, as I said. Might have made sense to have paid a little bit closer attention to that stuff, but we did for this one, at least. And so this one, given how it is the corrupted nexus, I imagine that means, even after killing the monkey, that we would see a corrupted boss spawn immediately after that. So I'm almost certainly going to forget that. Okay, now this I do recall from previous, before this most recent update, this most recent major update, the corrupted nexuses, nexi? What is the plural of nexus? Anyways, besides that, it did this a lot, which I thought was really stupid from a UI standpoint in the past. I mean, this is just such a glaringly obvious thing that you could put on, and that has been put on other areas. Oops. To show, hey, in case you're trying to head over here, you might want to know you're going to need to use a tier 14 waystone. Plan accordingly. Unlike this time, where, as I said, we looked at this, didn't see anything until we actually got here, and then suddenly, surprise! Okay, it's only tier 4. Or no, it's not that it's tier 4, it's that you have to have 4 explicit mods. Okay, maybe that's a little bit harder to concisely describe and or indicate with some kind of icon when you're just looking at the preview here, but it does still feel like it's pulling the chair out from under you a little bit when you get to one of these spots. It was the case previously, and it remains the case now, which does frustrate me a bit. It's 4 mods? Okay, so basically a rare that has a fair bit of stuffs on it. So, know if there's anything in particular that we like. Rather not do shocked ground, because that is probably the most dangerous thing. Would be if we are standing on shocked ground and get hit by Le Monkey, then it may legitimately be able to one-shot us. So, I would rather avoid that, if possible. But let's do this nice 4 mod map. Obviously, if we let the monkey crit us, that's also not going to be great. So, if we just don't let him hit us in the first place, that is obviously ideal. Ultimately, this is still a tier 1 map, so I'd like to believe this is not going to be that big of a problem, but we shall see. It's evil, lightning damage, reduced damage for crits. It might be this. Not so bad. Probably this. Yeah, let's do that one. Okay. Use an alchemy orb and take your chances. Called a randomizer. That's true. I mean, it basically is, right? Oh, wait, this is not the type of map I thought it was. No, this is the snake lady. Not the monkey. What was I thinking of? Confluence. I can picture the type of map that I had in mind. I thought we were about to walk into, but now I'm wondering what the name of that one is. What did I mistake this one? What is the name of one that I mistook this one? There are noticeably more enemies in this one. We've been perhaps a tad spoiled or lulled with a more comfortable state, a more relaxed state in those more straightforward maps. This one is theoretically also, ooh, that was a little bit nasty, but this one is theoretically also pretty straightforward to find the boss fight for. Granted, I oops, did not want to do that. Did venture off to the side a little bit here, but it is theoretically pretty linear. I'm not really going in a linear way though. So if we kind of stick to the plan here, probably do something more like this. Pardon-moi. This is, in case anyone was wondering, this is how you clear maps. And by clear, I mean explore. Because that's the boss. Oh, wait, is this the Snake Lady, or is this the one where it's, the Devourer plus the Scorpion? Now I'm just doubting myself. Alright. Well, only one way to know for sure. Snake Lady. Okay. Remember, very likely we'll see a corrupted boss of some variety immediately after, which I was expecting to forget. Here it is. Well, I guess it's kind of hard to not notice. Okay. I did not expect it to jump like that. There we go. Straightforward enough.
This will aid our research.
Okay, so how does this differ from previous times when this was a thing?
We are making progress. This subject differs from the last. That is to our benefit. These strange mutations may help identify how to calibrate my prototype further.
I cannot help but wonder. Is it safe for us to be in such close proximity to corruption?
Definitely not.
Oh, thanks,
But if you
Doriani.
develop any tumors or mutations, I will excise them for you. Besides, if you are so worried, just be quick about it.
I had hoped for a less flimsy reassurance.
I'm sure the negative effects are not something you will have to face for quite some time. Live for today, as they say. In any case, you have done well.
Doriani actually just told us YOLO. But are we really surprised to hear Doriani say safety third? And not even safety third, safety fifth for Doriani. And yes, this is what gives us the extra point for the Doriani science tree. I did not even realize that was the label they gave it. That's pretty good. So yeah, I had originally thought that doing any of these encounters would get you a point. I guess, you know, doing the math here, clearly that would not add up. But it was just that the math did add up perfectly for seemingly every other encounter. Do all of the maps in the designated area, and that's just enough for you to fill out the entire tree. But, you know, this is a different type of tree relative to the Atlas tree. I take Breach, for example. There's 32 points here. It's clearly a lot less than that. Clearly there's 5 here for Doriani, so, you know, it's just not quite as much. I feel like I needed to make that more obvious that I was deliberately counting that wrong. Yes, I can count, I swear. didn't quite give that the perhaps the inflection that it needed, but alas. Let's see. So for this for the first tier, oh, we went for the speedy expedition one. I remember seeing this. I did not remember that we took it though. Okay. So we can do maps are irradiated. That's straightforward. It works. It does have a use. Waystones have 25% more effective prefix and suffixes when opening maps. Magic packs have a chance to have an additional modifier. I don't know. I mean, this makes magic packs more powerful. Does that... They're an inherent bonus we get to either XP or drops from the magic monsters being more powerful? Or is this kind of just, well, it's more difficult because it's more difficult, and the only reason why you would ever take this is if you're, wanting to punish yourself? Whereas at least in this case, adding an extra level to the enemies, that does give more experience and potentially better drops, so that makes a lot more sense. Surface level. There may be... I'm pretty sure there are some points in the passive tree that we obviously have not invested very much in yet that may give you additional rarity based on the number of modifiers that enemies have, in which case that may be the intention behind this. That feels a little weird to have that kind of potential, but not guaranteed, overlap here. So maybe we'll just keep it simple for now. And I don't think you're allowed to keep these both active at the same time. I think whichever one you've clicked on is the one that's active and the other one is not, but I could be mistaken. Actually, this is kind of funny. Compare... Maps are always irradiated from Doriani's point here. Granted, this is tier 2, it's the second round, versus a 25% chance that the bosses specifically might be one tier higher. And more difficult. Basically, this always works for every enemy. This might work, but only for the boss. This is just objectively better in basically every conceivable way. Okay. Well, I think... yeah, we could go clear out the rest of this map, but I don't really know that there's much to be gained from doing that. Maybe we'll take a quick look at whether this is any good here. That's a small one from what I can tell from the preview. Yeah, just 3. Okay, that's not really enough to get my attention. I'm sorry, you are not powerful enough to get my attention. I do not care for anything of the 3, 4, perhaps even 5 runes or less. And thus, we out. Okay. Anything else we were hoping we might get the chance to investigate today? I don't know that we're going to actually do this one in the near future, because I imagine that it would be much like the Hive Colony, where because it has the icon on it, it's probably going to be a higher level area, and again, probably means worth waiting until we have come closer to finalizing our character before we do that. But we could get a little bit closer, just so that we can maybe have this be visible, although I thought I saw a while ago that we were able to click on it. I don't get anything popping up like this when I try to just hover over it, but I thought when I clicked on it a minute ago that it did actually give us some detail, and yet now it is not doing that. So I don't know what to make of that. We can go here to get closer, just for the sake of reconnaissance. I don't know that that's really all that interesting. Maybe that's not that high of a priority. Not there. Suppose... I'm also keeping an eye on the clock because it is starting to get pretty late for me right now, so I don't think we can go for much longer, which is why I'm kind of looking for maybe one more quick thing we can do. Perhaps go here. And I don't think, despite having done a whole bunch of the breach tree stuffs. I mean, that is by far the Atlas tree category that we've invested the most points in, and the last few are just from the special areas at the end of the breach plot line. But through doing this, we've accumulated a fair bit of points for the tree. However, I do feel like it is still possible to get a few more points, perhaps from completing that quest line and or doing the pinnacle boss. That may give you some... Oh, wait, what is this? Oh. We can throw that here. So there may still be additional points we can get, which means we can get more value out of our womb gifts if we wait to cash them in until we have reached that point, except our hive blood it's relatively high. It's not like we're right on the verge of hitting the cap right now, but there definitely have been many times where I've either hit it or come close enough that I was on the verge of hitting it, such that I figured, well, rather than maximizing the efficiency of each individual womb gift, I'd like to make sure that we aren't wasting hive blood that we would have gained if not for us being at the cap. So, for that reason, I have still, perhaps somewhat suboptimally, cashed in some womb gifts, but I think we can still give them some shots here. And I've generally been focusing on the lavish ones. They're the most straightforward. Because these other ones, they can be quite good, it would seem. The ones for amulets, belts, and rings. The modifiers you can get make it much more consistent for them to be useful drops. It's just that either, what's the end result? Either it's bad, in which case, you just vendor it and get gold out of it, so that's not that big of a deal. Or it's good, and it fits your build, in which case, perfect, throw it on, it works for you, but that's pretty unlikely that it's going to be exactly what you need, especially for us, when we have a unique amulet that we're using, and at least one, potentially two, unique rings that we're going to be using, so really the only piece of jewelry that we could potentially benefit from using on our build from a tree drop would be the belts. So that limits us, and so more likely you get a good drop, but it's one that doesn't really work for your build for any of a number of reasons, and so you either just stockpile it or you try to sell it to another player, which obviously you can do for currency flipping purposes, but it takes more time, and inventory space, or at least stash space, so it's not as straightforward as the lavish womb gifts, so I am kind of a fan of just the simplicity of these guys for that reason. So I'm thinking we'll just cash in a few of these guys, and hopefully get at least one nice drop out of that, and perhaps end the night on that note. I've deliberately, for the reason I was just describing, the fact that we may not quite have all of the points we'd like to have on this tree, I've deliberately been trying to start off with the lower level versions of the womb gifts, so I'm saving the really good ones for when our tree is actually fully fleshed out and optimized. But at this point, on the lavish in particular, given how that's the primary one that I've been cashing in, as you can see, we're mostly looking at 82 at this point, which I think is the cap, or at least it's the highest that I've seen. Maybe there's a way in which to get slightly higher than that, but I have yet to see it. So we'll do our 181. Listen for the sound effects, see if anything, there are any big bada booms, but did not hear there. cringing a little bit as I do this because I feel, I don't know how truthful this really is, but I feel like this is not a very efficient use of these. I'm just doing this because I want to have something for us to conclude on here.
She provides.
There we go. I was waiting for that. I was waiting for that. I could tell from the sound effects that we were getting some stuff, but not one of these guys until just then. And then obviously there's
on my side.
some lower tier stuffs as well. I have, as I said, I've used quite a few of those lavish womb gifts. I do have the tree set up to specialize in divines, and it felt like a few weeks ago I was having pretty good luck with getting divines to drop from this. Maybe I was just getting lucky, but it seemingly has somewhat consistently been a lower rate of divines as of late, and so it did make me wonder if they actually changed that and made it harder to get divines from the tree. I guess in this case it's just the tree, but maybe it's just my imagination. Maybe I did just get lucky at the beginning and that sort of gave me a false sense of how consistent that is, but it's enough of a difference that I legitimately am suspicious that it may not be as effective as it once seemed to be. That's a pretty good ring. Perhaps even one that we made from the tree. I don't recall, but there you go. That's potentially the process for doing that, and yeah, I'm still going the old school route. I still haven't converted my stash tabs to the formal shop stuff. So maybe that would make it quicker, easier, more straightforward to benefit from cashing in the womb gifts for the jewelry, but I just haven't gotten around to doing that yet. At one point in time, I think I was, when they first introduced that system, I was cautious because it's permanent, the transition from premium stash tab into the shop tab or whatever they call it. So I was like, okay, let's just make sure that this is a good thing to do before we make that switch. Maybe don't be a first mover on it. And, well, now plenty of time has passed, so I think we could probably make a call at this rate. But anyways, we did get our divine from the tree on that occasion, so I think that makes that a pretty decent place for us to wrap up for the night. As I said, it is a work night for me, so I can't really go any later than this, but we did actually get the chance to at least poke our head in a few new places, you know, one of which we actually, tell you what, one more thing I would like to see, because we learned that one of those encounters was not exactly, one of those experiences was not really what we were expecting. It turned out to be an encounter. Is there a life bar? Is the first question. There does not appear to be a life bar. Can we still access the zone? Is the next question. We can. It seems we can still walk into that area whenever we'd like, which I imagine would take us straight back into that boss fight, which is, if that is truthfully the case, that is nice, because as I said, I didn't know that was what was going to happen, and if in fact that is a valuable resource that we would have otherwise just thrown away, then obviously I wouldn't have felt great about that. So if it is, you know, cash it in, use whenever you'd like type of deal, then that'd be very convenient. I would appreciate that. So hopefully that's the case. Maybe not, but at least from what we could see there, that's maybe a good sign. So with all that being said, I do need to wrap things up here, but thank you all for stopping by. This was, of course, our Path of Exile 2 stream. And, yeah, ideally, I'd like to be getting earlier starts to these so that we can get more done on these, even on these work nights. But I think just for a number of reasons that just hasn't happened to have worked out for the past couple of weeks. And also, as I said, you know, we have other bigger things that we're hoping to be able to do soon. Once we get the currency to pick up some big items, and once we actually get those big items themselves, then hopefully we can start to really see what this character feels like in closer to its final form. But we aren't quite there just yet. But as for our overarching schedule, yes, at least as of right now, we're typically squeezing in PoE 2 on Thursday nights, but it's obviously logistically not ideal for all those reasons I was just describing. So sometimes we might do that. Might do PoE 2 on Fridays instead of Mass Effect Andromeda multiplayer. That would otherwise be our Friday night game. Otherwise, that's the phrase I'm looking for. Can you tell it's getting late? Otherwise, perhaps we might, you know, just try to find creative ways to work in PoE 2, or, you know, it may be that there are times when we are not in a particularly interesting place for us in the PoE 2 world, where, you know, I'm just shopping and whatnot, so that may be a day when we just decide, we'll pass on PoE 2 stream for today. But anyways, so PoE 2 in particular is sort of like in a little bit of a place where we have to adapt from week to week, day to day. So sorry for the you know, inconsistency a bit there. It's not because I'm trying to be difficult or anything like that. It is just kind of the nature of it being a work night and all that. But as I said, Fridays would otherwise be potentially PoE 2 or Mass Effect Andromeda multiplayer. Saturdays we're doing Mass Effect 3 multiplayer, and then Sundays we're doing Pyre multiplayer. And if you liked the stream, then of course you can hit the like button to support it. You can also hit the subscribe button to more easily stay up to date on the other things that we are doing around here. But actually, the best way to do that is by joining my Discord server. And you can do that if you give me a minute here. You can do that. So I have to manually generate a new link every time I start saying this at the end of every stream. And also it takes several clicks to do that, which is kind of annoying. It feels like there should be a much quicker and easier way to make that happen, but alas, here is the... Ooh, one moment. I misspelled that, or at least added an extra capital. There we go. That is the link to join my Discord. That is the best place to stay up to date on all things lids, especially if you are interested in PoE 2 in particular, given how, as I said, the schedule is perhaps more subject to change for PoE 2 than it might be for other games that we have been playing as of late. But that is going to be it for me for tonight, so thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed the stream, and I'll catch you next time.